This just changed the course of the whole season. What a win last night for the New York Mets, but it means more than just beating a division rival and snapping a 7-game losing streak. So stay tuned only here on Mets Digest to find out why. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. We're going to talk about this awesome win for the Mets and why it's so important for them moving forward. But first, we got to talk about some subscribers, and that being the fact that 69.8% of you that watch these videos aren't one. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here at Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. Kicking it off with a box score, 13-5. The Mets took care of the Atlanta Braves in game one of their series at home. By that final score, a big margin. They out-hit the Braves by double, 16-8. Great win. Gregory Soto gets the win out of relief. The Mets clobbered Spencer Strider. Justin Hageman gets career save number 1. You might be curious as to why. Well, traditionally, it is with 3 runs or less of a lead or with the tying run on deck for a reliever to come in and get the save. But if you pitch the last 3 innings of a Major League Baseball game, you get credit for the save. So congratulations to Justin Hageman, a rookie who just notched career save in the MLB number 1. He was great. He absolutely shoved for 4 innings. Now, likely what will happen is he's going to get sent down to AAA because he threw 55 pitches. He's going to get optioned, but that's fine. That's just kind of how it works. He's not going to be able to pitch for at least tonight and probably tomorrow as well. So the Mets want to save that arm. They want to use a fresh arm. So you might see a guy like Huascar Brosvan come up before tonight's game. As of now, however, there is nothing. The Mets might end up holding on to Hageman because they don't want to send him back down because they don't want to deal with all of those transaction moves. But it is very likely that they do, in fact, send Justin Hageman down because he threw so many pitches last night. If so, again, like I said, probably Huascar Brosvan will be seen. But today is more of a focus on the offensive end, and that is the statistic that is the third one up from the bottom on the batting side of the New York Mets. 2 out RBIs. Brett Baty with 2. Pete Alonso with 3. Francisco Alvarez with 4. Brandon Nimmo with 3. And Cedric Mullins get with 1. Guess what? That is a total of 13. How many runs did they score? 13. Yes. Every single run came on a 2-out RBI last night. That is awesome. That is great work. And that is probably why the New York Mets were so good offensively last night. Prior to this game, they only had 185 RBIs with 2 outs. That is just 1.55 per game, which is pretty terrible considering the Mets average 4.3 runs per game. Way less than a third are coming with 2 outs. They simply cannot hit with 2 down. It actually took until April 11th to surpass the 13 mark, which of course the Mets did last night, getting 13 2-out RBIs before the bad stretch. And this just goes to show how important 2-out RBIs are to winning baseball games. 122 2-out RBIs over 69 games. That is 1.77, way better than the average this year for the Mets. Since the bad stretch, during the bad stretch, excluding last night, 63 2-out RBI base hits, or RBIs rather, over just 50 games, 1.26 per game. That's a substantial difference. It's very simple. When you're getting 2-out RBI hits, when you're getting 2-out hits, your offense is chugging. Your offense is doing well. Look at the Milwaukee Brewers for a perfect example. The Mets got swept by them in Milwaukee, by the Brew Crew. They were great with 2 outs. They were always getting 2-out knocks, getting on base with 2 outs, scoring runners with 2 outs. It is such an underrated part of an offense and makes an offense play so well. And I'm glad that the Mets really honed in on that last night and scored all of their runs that way with 2 outs because it is vital to baseball and it really brings up this conversation, which is important. Look at this. The Mets had an awesome month of April, a 704 winning percentage, 52 of their seasons, 185 prior to last night, now 197. So 52 of the 197 2-out RBIs came in the month of April, in the month of April alone. That's more than a quarter. How did they do in April? Incredible. They were atop the MLB. It's not a coincidence. It adds up. Look at the losing stretch. 7 consecutive losses. Only 5 2-out RBI hits out of 25 total runs scored. That's 20% of the time. That's not very good. The Mets were not scoring runs. Less than 1 run per game via 2-out RBIs. The Mets simply cannot hit this year overall when it comes to 2 outs. 2 outs with guys on base and guys in scoring position in general. With just simply 2 outs, you see it on your screen here, the Mets have the 15th best batting average, middle of the road at 237. With 2 outs, a 321 OBP, that's 12th in the bigs, and a 722 OPS, also 12th in the bigs. As for scoring position and 2 outs, meaning there is a runner on second, a runner on third, or a runner on both second and third at minimum with 2 dead, the Mets are 17th in batting average with a 220, 13th in OBP with 326, and 15th in OPS with 683. As for scoring position, we all know this has been a season-long problem. 25th in batting average, so that is bottom of the league, just 236, 16th in OBP with a 329, and a 737 OPS, which is 15th in Major League Baseball. It's very simple. The Mets have not hit with runners in scoring position this year. They have not hit with 2 outs, and that is exactly what a team like the Milwaukee Brewers, who are scorching hot and are easily the best team in baseball right now, that is what Milwaukee does. Look, they're 5th in batting average with 2 outs, and they do great with runners in scoring position. You saw it in the series where they swept the Mets. So, with that, let's turn to some other important stats last night, and that being left on base. The New York Mets had 16 hits last night and only left 6 runners on base. That is in addition to 6 walks on the Braves side. So, a total of 22 runners got on base. Only 6 of them were left. That is vital. And that is the opposite of how the Mets have done this year. 6 last night. Overall, the Mets are averaging over 14 and a half runners left on base per game this year. That is 17th in the MLB. Now, there is a little bit of a flaw, quote unquote, with this stat. That being that the Colorado Rockies right now are number 1, meaning, they leave the least runners on base, right? Wouldn't they be the best team? No, because this stat doesn't take into account how many runners you get on base. So some of the bottom teams are in fact on here, like the Washington Nationals and the Baltimore Orioles, simply because they don't get runners on base. But it's a very important stat to look at when you look at a team that's supposed to be a juggernaut offensively, like the Mets with Juan Soto and Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor. It goes on and on. We've talked this 100 times before. When you have such a potent offense, or what's supposed to be a potent offense, where they get on base a lot, it's important to look at how many runners are left on, because it simply goes to show, especially when you pair it with the 2-out statistics and the scoring position statistics, you know how good or bad a team is doing at leaving guys on base. And as for the Mets, we know they've gotten a lot of runners on base this year. They simply just can't drive them in. Look at the difference. 14 and a half this season on average, 6 last night. That is over an 8.5 less runners left on base than normal, with significantly more hits. The Mets only average 8 hits per game so far here in 2025. We know from the box score, they scored 16 last night. They had 16 hits. That is double the amount of hits, and they're doing a much better job last night when it comes to getting guys in with runners in scoring position. As for the statistics overall, last night, Mets were 4 of 8 with runners in scoring position. That was really good. That's a 500 batting average. Overall, however, they are 25th, like we heard earlier, with just a 236 batting average. So why were the Mets so good last night? Well, very simply, they scored guys with 2 outs. They got those key hits with 2 outs. And they were not leaving runners on. They were driving guys in, hitting with runners in scoring position. That is how an offense does well. And especially when you talk about a pitching staff that is really starting to falter, particularly on the starting pitcher end. Obviously, we know David Peterson is awesome. He goes tonight. Hopefully, the Mets can get the series win and take the first 2 and be in danger for the Braves of sweeping, which would be awesome. But look at Clay Holmes' line last night. 3 2/3, 6 hits, 5 runs, all earned. 5 walks, 4 Ks, 85 pitches, ERAs up to 371. This starting pitching staff has been really, really bad of late. But the bullpen is there to help, and when you have an offense that's actually driving in runners, that's actually doing stuff with 2 outs, you don't have to worry about it as much because you're actually putting up runs. Now, we talked about this before. Recent moves might actually put Clay Holmes in danger of losing his starting rotation spot. He won't go down to AAA. Obviously, he's a very established MLB player. If he is not in the starting rotation, he's going to go to the bullpen. But these recent moves have indeed put danger for Clay Holmes. Check out my most recent video breaking Mets make shocking move. This changes everything Mets news. If you want to hear about that, Nolan McLean is in the big leagues. And with that, Brandon Sproat is probably right on the horizon to possibly take Clay Holmes' spot. Other than that, however, the Mets bullpen was awesome last night. Gregory Soto came in, cleaned up a sticky situation for Clay Holmes by getting an out and getting the Mets out of the fourth. Then he pitched another scoreless inning. Justin Hageman, of course, with the 4 innings in relief, gets the save. Didn't even give up a hit, just 1 walk given up to his name. Awesome job by Hageman. Great job there by Gregory Soto as well. Again, the starting pitching problems are still there, but overall, why do I think this is going to change the course of the season? Well, when you look at those statistics, when you look at this box score, the Mets did what they haven't done all year. Go ahead and assume now that with 2 outs, the Mets are going to drive in their guys. They're not going to leave guys on base. They're going to hit with runners in scoring position. I really think that this is the wake-up call. I've been screaming about this for weeks now. Just make a move. Just make a move. Well, the Mets made a move prior to last night's game. They said Frankie Montas is going to the bullpen. Then this morning, they said that Paul Blackburn will not be returning to the starting rotation. He's going to the bullpen. Then they also just called up Nolan McLean. And what happened? The New York Mets clobbered the Atlanta Braves last night. All of their problems look good with the exception of the starting pitching. And of course, that is what they've been addressing over the past couple of days. Now, we've talked about this before. Steve Cohen, he tweeted, "We haven't been playing well, but I still believe in this team. I'll be there at Citi Field for the next 3 games rooting on the Mets. Let's go Mets." Look, he was there last night applauding Pete Alonso on his historic home run. Go ahead and check out that video if you haven't already. And it's a little bit interesting to think, hey, maybe that's why David Stearns did something. We mentioned this. But also, it's not on the president of baseball operations side necessarily. This also might be the reason why the players did so well. The players who are clearly or were clearly in a bad stretch listened to their owner and said, "Ooh, the owner is going to be there. He is going to be sitting near the dugout watching me play." And look, they had 16 hits, they scored 13 runs, and everyone besides Clay Holmes looked great last night. I don't think that's a coincidence. Last thing that we got to go over is how the Mets are standing now. The Phillies actually lost to the Reds last night, so the Mets wild card lead stays at 2 games. There's not 4 teams making the NL wild card, by the way. There's just a tie right now in the National League West between the Dodgers and Padres, leaving both of them in the wild card, but also leading the division. Well, there will be a division winner, and then the other team will just be in the wild card. So right now, the Mets stand 3rd in the wild card, but with the Phillies lost last night, they're only 5 back in the division now, and of course, 2 up on Cincinnati. So overall, great night last night. I do think it will change the course of the season because I think it is simply the spark that the New York Mets needed. So go down there in the comment section. Let me know. Do you agree? Do you think that this is the spark that the Mets needed? This offensive explosion. Steve Cohen being there, maybe motivating the players, motivating the front office. Was that the spark the past day and a half? Is that what the Mets needed to snap out of their losing streak and get back to that World Series contending team that we all know and love? Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree down below in the comment section. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you today. Thank you so much as always for watching, and let's go Mets.